Hello, and thank you for contacting Wave Support. I see from your clinical request that you have a patient who's recently transitioned into rigid lenses and is struggling a little bit with comfort as well as some distance vision. Well, let's take a look at the designs here for a moment. First thing, just a couple general observations is, going from a soft lens to a rigid lens, sometimes you have a little bit more awareness, and this patient is used to the soft lenses riding, of course, on the outside the limbal area here. So it's very important that we get a lens that aligns very nicely on this cornea. Looking at your initial designs, these axial designs actually look very nice. One thing I've found through the years with these rigid lenses, Wave fits this cornea very nicely, does a nice representation of the entire cornea, but sometimes it's so nice that you have almost no tear exchange. Sometimes you'll find that if you can just lift up this peripheral curve a little bit, you'll get a little bit better tear pump through here, which allows a little bit better comfort and less of the dryness feeling. I've also found that quite often, if you remember these axial designs, very closely mimic the central cornea, but they're not as precise as at representing the peripheral cornea. If you go over here to tangential design, you tend to get Wave tends to interpret the data more precisely out in this peripheral area as opposed to the central part. So quite often when it comes to awareness or discomfort, I try to align this outer part of the lens as closely to the cornea as I can, and quite often I find that gives a little nicer feel. Sometimes in these axial designs, I get almost the what I refer to as the cookie cutter feel, where you get a little bit more of binding out here in these peripheral areas. And so what I did on this particular lens, I just mocked up a quick design using a tangential approach. And once again, I just did a nice alignment here. I tried to get a little bit more lift in this vertical meridian and a little bit tighter in this horizontal meridian. And usually I find this kind of design, if you're going to stay on the cornea, gives you a little bit nicer, a little less awareness on the side. I think this will be a nice thing to try. As far as other possibilities, uh, I've had a lot of Wave designers have had pretty good success with going to a semi-scleral design. And so I looked over here in the left lens, I just did a mock-up of that for a moment. Sometimes if you get a lot of lens awareness and you can't just get over that hurdle of comfort, just try to rest that lens onto the limbus, past the limbus. In this case, I went to the Wave training videos, and I'll include a link in the email that shows the 8-point step for designing a semi-scleral lens. It's really a nice tool. I've had pretty nice success with these lenses, not going to full vaulting scleral design, but more of a semi-scleral design. And this almost gives you the fitting of a soft lens. Um, and I find these can be very comfortable for patients. One thing I have noticed, though, and a lot of the Wave docs will share this with you, if you get into these semi-scleral or scleral designs in these lenses, quite often you have to go on your bifocal, quite often you almost have to go to a um, center near approach, just because you have very little translation in these lenses. And that could be a consideration for you, considering this patient came from a BNL soft lens. Let's talk for a moment on the distance vision. Sounds like you're very close in your designs. I did notice when I looked at your pupils, the anterior optical zones and these bifocals. In both cases, they're pretty small zones. You got a pretty generous reading section here. That's probably why it does pretty well up close. You don't have a lot of options on these. You definitely basically have to get this anterior optical zone bigger. So I would probably make both of these a little bit larger. I usually go in about 0.5 units at a time. Uh, go about the same, and this one go a little bit larger. And then if you're concerned about losing reading, if you go a little bit bigger on these things, about a half or so. What you can do is bump up the ads a little bit higher to account for that. So you might, so it basically gives you a little more generous distance zone, a little quicker transition in power to a little stronger area out here in the periphery. And that's probably what I would do next for that. So to summarize things, first of all, you want to work on making sure this peripheral alignment area, this landing area as we like to call it, is nicely matched to that cornea. You want to create enough tear pump here to allow a nice tear exchange so these lenses don't start skidding on that bare cornea. That should help tremendously with the comfort. If you can't get over lens awareness, then I would go to a semi-scleral design, and that will get you onto the sclera and get less of the translating, so that way you have less lid awareness when you hit that lens. then, of course, go to a little larger optical zone, anterior optical zone, to create a little bit larger distance viewing area. And then if you feel clinically that it's indicated, you might have to bump up that power on the ad just to create a little stronger effect to offset what you lose in this distance area. With those little subtle adjustments, I think you'll do well with this design. Keep in mind, as you know, that none of these bifocals are perfect, but it sounds like you're well on your way to being successful with the design. Well, I hope you find this helpful. I wish you well with this case, and thank you for contacting Wave Support. Have a great day.